Welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC on ABC3, Ortega versus Rodriguez. This event is occurring on July 16th. The prelims starting at 10 a.m. Central with the main card starting at 1 p.m. Central. This is a fight happening in the UBS Arena out there in Long Island, New York on the East Coast. We're very excited to see this six-fight main card coming our way, starting with Lauren Murphy versus Meisha Tate. Then we've got Shane Burgos fighting Charles Jourdain. Matt Schnell fighting against Sumudaerji. Jingliang Lee fighting Muslim Salikhov. Michelle Waterson in the co-main event fighting Amanda Lemos. And for the main event of UFC on ABC3, we've got Brian Ortega matching up against Yair Rodriguez, a featherweight bout with massive implications. To open the card, though, Jose, we've got a really fascinating women's flyweight bout. Lauren Murphy fighting against Meisha Tate. Lauren Murphy coming in at the plus 164 underdog spot here. UFC veteran in the underdog spot against Meisha Tate, who is looking at a minus 215 favorite. So relatively heavy favorite here. And I think there's plenty of reasons why, Jose. Obviously, Lauren Murphy's coming off of a tough loss to Valentina Shevchenko, which is always understandable when you lose to a legend like that. And otherwise, it's hard to rag on her for having her fight win streak going into that loss. So it's really hard to knock Lauren, and a lot of people would look at that and not understand why she's the underdog. But Meisha Tate is definitely a woman to be feared. She did lose against Ketlin Vieira via decision in a 5-round fight, but that was extremely close still, even though it was unanimous. And Jose, I'm just really curious to see what you think about this one.
Yeah, Nick, I'm excited to see Meisha weight drop down to flyweight. As historically we know, she is the bantamweight champion. So seeing her cut down, I think that plays a huge role into why Lauren Murphy may be the underdog, is because Meisha Tate will be coming in the bigger girl. And that being said, also a former champ. Like you mentioned, Lauren Murphy, she was impressive with her 5-fight win streak. But again, you can't knock her. Lauren Shevchenko. Meisha Tate, do I see Meisha Tate being Valentina Shevchenko? I don't know. Meisha Tate seems like she's for real. I saw an interview with her, and she mentioned how she doesn't really want to make a run for 135. So it seems like she wants to make the run at this weight class at flyweight, but her matching up with Valentina, I don't see it. Her with Lauren Murphy, I like that more for sure. And Meisha Tate, she's going to have to utilize her strengths, which is her wrestling. She has a strong wrestling background, and we all seen it back in the day. Her versus Ronda, judo versus the wrestling. Both, were average strikers. And then since then, I've been noticing that Meisha Tate has been working on her striking a lot more. So she's going to come in naturally the bigger girl and have wrestling strength as well on her side. And along with that, on the feet, I think Meisha Tate may have her number, just naturally being the bigger girl. But again, I actually think this is going to be a tough matchup for Meisha Tate. Her first fight at flyweight, and it's going against a killer like Lauren Murphy. So I think this is going to be a grueling fest. It's going to be a tough fight for Meisha Tate. It's not going to be an easy win for her. That's how I view it, Nick.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I love your points regarding Meisha Tate needing to, in your opinion, use her grappling advantage and get Lauren Murphy at least close in the grappling and the clinch exchanges. I think that's huge because Lauren Murphy does pose a huge threat standing up and at a distance against Meisha Tate. She possesses a 2-inch reach advantage here, which isn't too massive, but I think it's going to make a difference, and we're going to be able to see Lauren Murphy potentially dominate when they're standing at a distance. But if Meisha Tate can do a good job of getting to the clinch and getting to the ground, I think she holds a relatively significant advantage in those fields. And I think if she doesn't get the submission necessarily, she will at least be able to control Lauren Murphy and keep her on the ground for a majority of at least a round or two. And in that case, Lauren Murphy would need to get the KO to win, which I just don't see happening. So, yeah, I'm with you. This is going to be a tough fight for both of these girls. By no means is Meisha taking a cruise in here and take Lauren Murphy down and make it look easy, because that's just not how it's going to go. But if she can brawl it out, get her in the clinch at least, get her to the side, get her on the ground, that'd be huge. I will go with Meisha Tate on this fight.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that, Nick. I'm gonna go with Meisha Tate as well. But again, it's gonna be a fun fight to see, and I'm interested to see what type of run she makes at the flyweight division. And for the next fight of the night, we have an exciting featherweight bout between the number 14 ranked Shane Burgos versus Charles Jourdain. Right now, Shane Burgos is the betting favorite at minus 192, while Charles Jourdain is the betting underdog at plus 148. Yo, this is a fight. You know, you and I were just getting excited before this recording talking about this. This is a fight that a lot of fans think may be fight of the night just because how much these two guys have a high volume output of punches and press forward and take a lot of damage. You know, we've seen Shane Burgos have a pretty scary knockout in the past. And also, not only that, he's a little spazzy, and we saw how he gets when he fought Kelvin Cater. You know, when the dude gets rocked, the dude starts spazzing out, and he can put himself in vulnerable positions to put himself out even more. While Charles Jourdain, on the other hand, he himself is coming off an impressive 2-fight win streak right now. His last fight was to Julian Erosa back at UFC Fight Night 191 of September 2021. Right now, he's gotten a unanimous decision win and a submission win. So this is going to be a fun one to see just how the two match up stylistically, Nick.
Yeah, for sure, Jose. I'm very fascinated to see. I think a lot of people are really excited to see this fight, and they think it's going to be the fight of the night, the people's main event. I think it's got a good chance to be. Shane Burgos he's Hurricane Shane. He's got that aspect of him that does get a little bit weird at times. But in the end, I mean, he's a big dude for this division. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage on Charles Jourdain. I'm just very fascinated to see how that turns out. I mean, he puts out ridiculous volume with almost 8 strikes per minute, and he's clearly seems to have the grappling advantage, or at least in terms of being able to control whether this fight will be standing or on the ground, as Charles Jourdain has not logged a takedown in any of his UFC fights and has a sub 50% takedown defense. So if Shane Burgos really needs, and he feels that threatened, which I don't think he ever has in any of his fights, so I doubt that'll change. But if he does, he can go for the ground game, and I'm not sure he'll get the submission, but it's just a good way to control Jourdain and avoid getting knocked out if it's getting to that point. So I don't know, Jose. I think I'm leaning Burgos on this one. They're both kind of really needing a win here. And shoot, I think this might go the distance. I think these guys are just going to continue to swing at each other, and it's going to get really bloody, and it's going to be a great fight to see.
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. This is I with you. I'm gonna start saying like, yeah, I am gonna go with Shane Burgos as well. The dude has his 100% takedown accuracy and 91% takedown defense. Yeah, like you said, he needs to utilize that grappling to at least get himself out of those situations of being knocked out. And not only that, he has a 6-inch reach advantage over Charles Jourdain. So yeah, I think like if he plays it smart and doesn't spaz out too much like he can utilize his reach advantage and his grappling because he's the much older. He's not much older, but he's definitely older than Charles Jourdain. So he's a little more experienced as well. And I think that he definitely just needs to utilize his strengths that he hasn't so much in the past, but like really start putting it together because he does seem to lose to the best of the best, but he's good enough to beat guys like Charles Jourdain. And I think right now Charles Jourdain is a great opponent for him to really start piecing everything together so he can actually start doing well against guys in the top 10. So like you, Nick, I am going to go with Shane Burgos. And I do think this is going to be a fun fight. I think Charles Jourdain is definitely going to give it to him.
Yeah, for sure, Jose. I might even be willing to go as far as within the distance here. I think Shane Burgos is going to just wail on Charles Jourdain, and it might end up getting to the third round, so I'm not quite looking to bet on under 2.5 or anything, but I would want to say to consider to at least go for Shane Burgos by knockout. I think it's possible here, Jose.
You guys heard it there. Both Nick and I for Shane Burgos, and Nick has him by knockout. And if I were to say, yeah, I would go. Shane Burgos is a dog. Yeah, I would say he's going to try to stop this early. So you can throw me down for Shane Burgos for knockout as well.
Coming into you next, we've got a flyweight bout with a young and up and coming fighter, Sumudaerji, fighting against Matt Schnell. We've got Sumudaerji at a minus 295 favorite. One of the heaviest we're going to see on this card. Matt Schnell plus 220 underdog. I think this is almost insane to see such a seasoned UFC veteran as Matt Schnell. I understand that he doesn't have a crazy amount of UFC fights, but he's been around for years at this point, having good fight wins against guys like Louis Smolka, Jordan Espinosa. I just think he's being overlooked a little bit. One of his losses was overturned because the guy got caught with substances. I'm not quite sure if it was that big of a deal or not. But in any case, I get it because Sumudaerji's coming off of his own 3-win streak. So these guys are both looking kind of hot coming into their fights potentially. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, Nick, I'm excited for this matchup. I like Sumudaerji. I'm going to call him the Tibetan Eagle for the rest of this. The Tibetan Eagle, I definitely am impressed with what I've seen. Like, after his first fight, he did not do so hot, losing his UFC debut, but he's racked up an impressive 3-fight win streak in the UFC. And yeah, he's being put up against a UFC vet like Matt Schnell. That being said, I think it's properly assessed right that they make this matchup. I think they're trying to push Sumudaerji up in the flyweight division, and it's so. I mean, the guy is a monster. He has 100% takedown accuracy and 77% takedown defense. This guy can put you where he wants to at any given moment. And he has, I think it's going to be on the feet interesting because both him and Matt Schnell have over 4.20 significant strikes landed per minute. I like Sumudaerji. He's got power too. I mean, 13 out of his 16 fights come via knockout, and he's never been knocked out himself. So I think he's going to press forward and give the UFC vet a run for his money, Nick.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment, Jose. I think the Tibetan Eagle has a real threat standing up, and he's got a really good ability to avoid strikes as well, only absorbing half the strikes that he dishes out, whereas Matt Schnell is looking at 4.3 strikes absorbed a minute. So it does kind of make it seem like there could be a standing striking advantage, maybe a little bit leaning towards Sumudaerji, but in the end, I don't know. I like Matt Schnell in this situation, especially when you can get him as good as plus 220. It's almost, I'm a math guy, and it's a simple conversion. Sumudaerji lost to Louis Smolka in his UFC debut by sub, armbar specifically, and Matt Schnell went and fought Louis Smolka afterwards and subbed him with a triangle choke. I think Matt Schnell is going to go in there, and if he was wise, I understand that Sumudaerji has a great takedown defense, but I still don't think he's going to be able to completely avoid being on the mat at least once or twice in this fight. And when it gets to that point, will Matt Schnell be able to convert that and get the submission? I think so in this case. So I'm going to go with Matt Schnell by submission.
I like that. Yeah, that's a great pick, Nick. Out of all the methods for Matt Schnell to win, I do think the submission is the best option because all of Sumudaerji's the Tibetan Eagles losses are via submissions. So that is something that I will say is I definitely agree with you on. But I am going to go the other way and go with Sumudaerji for my bet as stated. So yeah, you guys have that. You guys heard that there. I have Sumudaerji and Nick has Matt Schnell. And for the next fight of the night, we have a welterweight bout between the number 14th ranked Li Jingliang versus Muslim Salikhov. Right now, Li Jingliang is the betting underdog at plus 138, while Muslim Salikhov is the betting favorite at minus 178. As we all know, Li Jingliang just came off a loss to Khamzat Chimaev, and Muslim, on the other hand, has just been winning since 2017. This is a fight I'm extremely excited about. Li Jingliang, he is the betting underdog going into this fight, but I think a lot of people, shouldn't write him off so quick. He does have a lot of power, and disregard kind of what Khamzat did to him, like the last fight. That's just Khamzat being Khamzat. Here, Li Jingliang, he is a serious threat in the division, and I think this is going to be a pretty close fight for. I'd say so, Nick.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is great matchmaking. Both of these guys are pretty similarly matched in ability, I think. And like you mentioned, one of them is coming off a 5-fight win streak in Salikhov. But and none of those guys are going to strike anyone as like supreme fighters. A lot of them are kind of introductory UFC fights, and I think this is one of the first bigger steps up in competition that Salikhov is going to see. And for Lee's side, it's more or less giving him a test to see if he's good enough to stay where he's at, because he's fought some real big names like Neil Magny and Khamzat and lost to both of them. But in his own right, he's never been knocked out. He lost to Jake Matthews also in 2018 via unanimous decision. But otherwise, I think Lee really only loses to the higher end fighters at the UFC. They've matched him up against some pretty top end guys. And he also, in between those losses to Neil Magny and Khamzat, he was able to beat Santiago Ponzinibbio, who himself is coming off of a couple losses, but Michel Pereira is a pretty good fighter, and it was a split decision. So a lot of people thought he won that fight. So I think that win against Santiago is huge. And it really just shows that Li Jingliang has the ability to stand with really good strikers still, even though he did get outstruck and dominated by Khamzat. I just think Khamzat is kind of another species right now at this point in the division, and not to take away from Salikhov, but even statistically, Jingliang kind of leads in strikes landed per minute. They both have over one takedown per 15 minutes, so it'll be fascinating to see if it does go to the mat, who's got the advantage there, because I think they're pretty similarly skilled. But in any case, I think I'm leaning the underdog here, Jose.
Yeah, Nick, I actually agree with you. I'm surprised Li Jingliang is the underdog, and I'm surprised he is by what he is at plus 138. I figured the odds of the money. I thought the money line would be closer on this because Li Jingliang, I mean, this guy, he is coming in as the younger fighter. They're both in their 30s, Muslim being 38 and Jingliang being 34, but he is coming in as he's coming in as the younger fighter, and he's slightly the bigger fighter. I mean, he has a 3-inch reach advantage, and not only that, like you mentioned before, his experience already in the UFC. I mean, fights against Neil Magny and Santiago Ponzinibbio and Khamzat Chimaev. Yeah, I mean that is great competition to face in the welterweight division, and no shame to losing to those names, but even knocking out Santiago Ponzinibbio. And I think Li Jingliang, for him being the younger fighter, he also has more MMA experience than Muslim. So I do think that even though he's younger, he's going to come in with a bit more of a just comfortableness being in the UFC already. Again, this guy is he's a monster in himself, and I think a couple of wins and we can see him being top name in the top 10 of the welterweights pretty soon. So for that, yeah, I'm gonna go. I think there's a lot of value going with the underdog in this one. So like yourself, Nick, I'm gonna go with Li Jingliang for this one.
Sounds good to me. I also wanted to make a note that neither of these guys have been KO'd in their pro fighting careers, and I think that's going to continue here. I'm going with the underdog, and I'm also going to say by decision. And for the co-main event of the evening, we're going to have a women's strawweight bout between Michelle Waterson and Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos, the heaviest favorite on this card at minus 400 right now. Michelle Waterson, plus 285 underdog. Jose, it's honestly totally understandable to see why Lemos is such a heavy favorite here. She was coming off a 5-fight win streak going into fighting Andrade and displayed striking prowess for what most people believed in the first minute and a half of that fight, only gets subbed. And it was, I believe, a standing arm triangle. Just a rough spot there. I'm just not sure Michelle Waterson brings any of that to the table here. And from the steps that we've seen Lemos take in her striking game, it'll be fascinating to see what Michelle Waterson can bring to the table here. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. It's as a since I've been watching the UFC, I've watched Michelle Waterson kind of watch her career goes as she just came in through Invicta, and she's faced a lot of the big names, but she never really seemed to be the people she needed to get that title shot. She's always been close, but never really secured it. And as time's gone on with her career, the window to has been, that window of opportunity has been kind of closing up for her. And I think a loss here can really kind of seal that faith. I mean, she's uh, got quite a bit of losses now on her record. And Amanda Lemos, as of recently, besides that loss to Jessica Andrade, she was on a pretty impressive 5-fight win streak. And she is got the power herself as well. I mean, 7 KOs, 7 out of her 11 wins are via KO, which is pretty impressive. And Michelle Waterson, yeah, I mean, she has good stand up, but I don't think her punches are as effective anymore. I mean, she has more submission wins on her record than knockouts, but she does throw a good volume of punches. But to this day, like, she throws 3.57, and against Lemos, who throws 5.14, not bad. But again, I just think Michelle Waterson isn't the same fighter she definitely was years ago, and it seems like this is just a fight they're kind of given to push Amanda Lemos with a big name UFC fighter.
Yeah, I hear you, Jose. I don't know. I think this is kind of self-explanatory from there. Uh, Michelle Waterson's got an uphill battle to face here. I mean, she does have the advantage of her previous two fights going 25 minutes. Clearly has the conditioning and the ability to fight full and hard for those 15 minutes. But I don't know if it's going to take that long for Lemos to end this fight. We'll see. But not only, in terms of matchups, but statistically, Lemos is just superior in this matchup. So I'm definitely going Lemos here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Lemos too. And just to kind of piggyback a little more off what we said earlier, though, she does have that win over Angelina Hill. That is Michelle Waterson, but that was a split decision, and that win came back in September of 2020. During that time, Amanda Lemos has been a lot more productive, and because of that, that's another thing that I'm going to use to back up why I'm going with her. She's fought 3 times last year, while Michelle Waterson's been completely only like fought once, and that was that loss. So, um, again, just a little more activeness is kind of like a little recency bias I have. So that being said, yeah, I'm gonna go with Amanda Lemos like you. And now, for our main event, we have an exciting featherweight bout between the number 3 ranked Yair Rodriguez versus the number 2 Brian Ortega. This is a fight I'm extremely excited about. We have 2 young, hot prospects. One recently just challenged for the title, battling it out right now. Two, what I think is going to be a title shot next. Whoever wins this fight, I believe will get the next title shot. Right now, they're both coming off losses, though. Brian Ortega could not secure that win over Alexander Volkanovski, while Yair Rodriguez came off a 5-round banger with Max Holloway. This is a fight I'm extremely excited about, Nick, for many reasons. Stylistically, how these guys, their volume, their youthfulness, and the energy they bring into the octagon. I'm expecting fireworks from this fight, Nick.
For sure, Jose. I would honestly forget any other fight we've discussed up to this point. This is going to be insane. I mean, both of these guys have only ever lost to top end fighters like Max Holloway. They both lost to. Obviously, like you mentioned, Brian Ortega's only other loss besides Max Holloway is Alexander Volkanovski at this point, due to an overturned fight from 2014. So regardless, it's just crazy to see these guys matching up. Like you said, Yair coming off an absolute war loss against Holloway. This fight gave Holloway his chance for the third time against Volkanovski, where he failed. But regardless, Yair also having a massive streak of wins to start his UFC career, and then that was cut short by Frankie Edgar. But then he came back and beat the Korean Zombie, and that was a fascinating fight looking back at it, because I think in most people's opinions, he was losing that fight in its seconds from going to decision, but he gets the elbow KO against the Korean Zombie, wins the fight. So to me, that could very easily have been a loss on Rodriguez's board, and that's not necessarily to take as much away from him, but I just think it kind of puts him back to earth a little bit. And otherwise, like you said, stylistically though, these guys are going to be crazy to watch come in here and bring the energy that they take. Brian Ortega's got an iron chin. It's almost impossible to knock this guy out. And I don't see that happening for sure. But it being a 25-minute fight also makes me believe that it's not going to go the distance, because these guys are just going to be swinging for the fences. So I don't know, Jose. This is a really tough one to pick. And based on the odds you mentioned earlier, I don't know. It's kind of tempting to lean the plus 136.
Yeah, Nick, exactly. Like the only thing I have like concerning this fight is Yair Rodriguez is how his level of productivity compared to Brian Ortega within the last few years. Yair Rodriguez has almost gone MIA at certain times, and no one really knew what he's been up to, and he's been just kind of not as vocal off outside the octagon, and when he's not competing. And Brian Ortega too, though. On the other hand, I think during the short period while Yair Rodriguez was away, Brian Ortega, that's when he kind of stepped up, and we saw him just become an instant title contender. And we saw him, go against Max, and then again like against Alexander Volkanovski. And this fight, I think stylistically, when it comes, it's going to be a heavy striking match. But Brian Ortega, I think, has the better jiu-jitsu. It just seems like he's not been utilizing it as much as of lately as he did earlier on in his UFC career. And Yair Rodriguez actually has pretty good jiu-jitsu as well. But he is just a far superior striker, and his style is a little crazy. Like you mentioned, when he was fighting the Korean Zombie, he may have been, a lot of people did view that as, including myself, that he was on his way to a decision loss. But that Hail Mary, the last moment, I remember seeing that live, was crazy. Jaws dropped, and he just dropped the Korean Zombie with like 1 second left. And that's the type of thing that Yair Rodriguez brings to the table. Is he's unpredictable. He does these spinning wheel kicks and cartwheels out of nowhere. And that's not to say Brian Ortega may not try the same, but it's not always smart and wise. It's just flashy, and I think it's just to get a response out of you. Brian Ortega is going to need to stay stiff and press forward and stick to his game plan when it comes to Yair Rodriguez, because he's a very flashy fighter compared to Brian Ortega. And I think a lot of people will see Brian Ortega winning this. But I personally, I think it's going to be a really hard fought out battle. I think both are going to walk out with like pretty black eyes, like puffiness and all that. And I'm going to go with the underdog, Yair Rodriguez, his unpredictability. And I think it's about time, his UFC career right now has kind of been like a long time coming. Like he probably should have already challenged for the title a while ago. And his name's, like that one loss to Frankie Edgar, that was a younger Yair Rodriguez back then. That's not the same fighter today. And obviously Frankie Edgar has definitely, dropped off since then. And that's how I'm viewing this fight. I think I'm gonna have to go with the underdog. I think he still has a lot to prove compared to Brian Ortega, but you can't argue his flashiness. And I really want to see some new blood up there challenging for the title.
Yeah, for sure. I can see arguments going both ways here, Jose. And honestly, That being said, in the end, I do lean Brian Ortega here, the favorite. Yair will probably try and throw some crazy stuff out there, but I think Brian Ortega is the guy that's just not going to be phased by it. He's going to continue to press forward, and he's not going to get knocked out by those crazy elbows or kicks that might come his way. So I don't know. I just don't see Brian Ortega getting knocked out. Not that I see Yair Rodriguez getting knocked out, but he has been knocked out in the past by Frankie Edgar and then another fighter in one of the Mexican leagues a few years ago. But that's kind of irrelevant by now. But at this point, even if the knockout isn't involved, I think Brian Ortega's ability to just get such quick submissions. Obviously, he fell short with Volkanovski slipping away from his grasp, which is disappointing. But I just don't think Ortega is going to let that happen again. And if he gets Yair Rodriguez in any of the guillotine or rear naked choke positions, I think it's fight over at that point. So I'm going to take Ortega. I'm not going to take any specific win method. I'm just going to say Ortega here.
I like that pick, Nick. I'm gonna differ and go with Yair Rodriguez, and I don't know if he can finish Brian Ortega, and they both have the cardio to and the stamina to just really keep a high pace fight all 5 rounds. So I will go with Yair Rodriguez as the underdog winning this, and I'm gonna also say via decision. So there you have it. I have Yair Rodriguez via decision, while Nick has Brian Ortega.
And welcome to the betting portion of UFC on ABC 3. We will have, as usual, a few of our premier lock bets on top of our lock pick of the week, underdog, and a couple parlays to finish it off. Before we get into it, please remember to subscribe on YouTube, click the bell, and leave a comment below to let us know what you're betting on or if you have any other comments on the card. Also, leave a follow on Twitter at Moneyline MMA. Now to get into it here, we've got 3 lock bets for you coming in with the first. We're going to go with Li Jingliang by points. Second, we're going to go Schnell by submission. Most of these are self-explanatory. We went through these as earlier. Jose and I both agreed on that one as well. The third is going to be whether you take my pick in Ortega or Jose's pick in Yair by points for the main event. For the lock of the week, Moneyline MMA's lock is going to be Meisha Tate, the card opener. As status quo around here, we don't take the heaviest favorite, but Meisha Tate might as well be. She is going to come in here and dominate a strong, good UFC veteran and ensure that she continues a run to a next title chance. Our underdog of the week is going to be Li Jingliang. Jose and I both agreed on him winning that fight, and as stated previously, we strictly think it's going to be by points. First parlay of the week here, we're looking at Lemos plus Burgos plus Tate. Of course, we got to get our lock in there. You get that at plus 178. You might as well put the bulk of your betting money on that one because it's almost guaranteed to hit. We're going to add in for the second level here. We're going to go Li Jingliang, the underdog of the week. She's plus 138, so she pushes it up to plus 562 as a 4-leg parlay. And if you're really looking to add this to the top, you can add a 5th leg in there. And going back to what I said earlier, whether you agree on my pick in Ortega or whether you agree on Jose's pick in Yair, you throw the main event prediction that you have as the 5th leg. And if you go with Ortega, you'll have a plus 943 5-leg parlay, which is personally what I'll be going for. And then if you put Yair in instead, you'll have a plus 1464 since he is the underdog there. It's a much higher odds. And that being said, I would strongly recommend against going separately. So, going against your own bets is what I'm trying to say. So if you are going to bet for, Yair in your parlay. Don't bet for Ortega in your individual bet. That doesn't make any sense. Definitely spread your bets out. Don't put all your money into one bet, but also keep in mind to not make your bets contradict each other, because otherwise you're just restricting yourself from money that could be made. But those are going to be all the bets for this week on Moneyline MMA. And as usual, we will be back with you guys next week. Thank you for watching.